Hi guys, it's drama, and more drama. Let's get into all the drama. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 25. Let's have a conversation because my goodness gracious, there's been drama and more drama all over the MMA space. And we are going to dig into all this on today's episode. Guys, before we continue, I'd like to make quick apology. I haven't been a bit consistent with my long form videos over the last couple of days, and the reason is this. Like I said in a previous video, I have a personal tragedy happening in my life and I had to suspend my YouTube work so that I can go over to be with a family member who's transitioning. Please keep her in your prayers. And just had to share that with you guys, and I apologize for it. So with that being said, I'm back. Let's have a conversation about a couple of things that have been on my mind this last couple of days. As always, I want to have a conversation about the BMF tournament proposed by Dustin Poirier. Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria, UFC 307. It's upon us. And there was a first interview between Max and Ilia Topuria, anchored by Brendan Fitzgerald. Next, after that, we're going to talk about Mr. Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill needs to be discussed. Let's talk about Jamahal Hill's delusions for a little bit, right? After that, we're going to get into the drama between the MMA guru, Dana White, and Nina Drama. I don't even get it, but I'll try to wrap my head around it and see where this goes. Then let's have a conversation about UFC holding an event in Africa and what my thoughts are on that. I'd probably be more or less an authority on how the landscape in Africa will be if the UFC ever decides to go there. And last but not least, let's dig our claws into George Masvidal and Tyron Woodley potentially returning back to mixed martial arts. I know how that sounds. Trust me, I know how that sounds. But it's my work to bring the news to you guys and give you my reactions, and then you tell me what you think. Right? That's the whole idea of this little gig we've got going here. Okay. So without further ado, let's dig into number one. In that particular order, I'm going to do some extended. This might be an extended version, obviously, because I haven't been online for a bit. Now, let's get into it. The BMF tournament proposed by Dustin Poirier. Recently, Dustin Poirier was on a podcast and he mentioned something about the UFC organizing a Grand Prix style tournament for the BMF. And he says he wants 4 people in this tournament. Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, because obviously Max is the current BMF, and himself, Dustin Poirier. Now, Dana White was asked about this proposal just after UFC 307 at the press conference, and Dana said that it sounds like fun, even though it was something he hasn't really considered. But he said it does sound like fun. It might be something he might be considering, I like it. That's essentially what Dana says. Sounds like fun. He hasn't considered it. Now, here's my thoughts on this. I think the UFC started in a tournament style a long time ago, right? The early days of the UFC were more tournament styles, where Royce Gracie was the one who won the first UFC tournament, which was UFC 1. So it's not like the UFC Grand Prix fight model, tournament model is new to the UFC. It's not new. They've done it before. In fact, I can argue that for a mainstream fight promotion, the UFC is literally a pioneer of the Grand Prix format tournament for combat sports. UFC is up there. I mean, if any other organization has done it, nobody's done it mainstream. No other mainstream company did it earlier than the UFC. I do not believe one did it earlier. I don't believe Strikeforce or Bellator or PFL ever did that tournament style format earlier than the UFC, right? So they're not new to it. However, somewhere along the line, the UFC has transcended that format and has evolved into the structure that we have today, where there's a ranking system. You fight people on the ranking system, you fight people who are not ranked. Everybody has to climb the ranking system allegedly and make their way to the top, become a #1 contender, and then fight for a belt, right? That is the standard format, even though the UFC themselves do not follow that standard, right? The UFC is a business as far as I'm concerned. The rankings really, it's just a formality. The UFC doesn't really care about the rankings. Let's be honest, right? UFC has done so many guys dirty and so many ladies dirty on the rankings that deserve title shots, but then you find someone else coming out from nowhere, or someone else who the UFC is really pushing will get a title shot before actual contenders. I'm just saying that is real. That is not something I'm making up. There's just too many examples, right? Now that we've gotten that aside, let's get back to this issue of the UFC tournament for the BMF belt, right? I want to first start by saying that the BMF belt, as I've said in the past, the BMF belt in many cases, to a lot of casuals, sometimes that even plays better than the actual belt in whatever division, right? And since the BMF belt started with Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, who both fought for the belt at welterweight, with Nate Diaz fighting a lot of his matches in the UFC at 155. I don't think Masvidal ever did a 155. He never dropped below welterweight. My point is, the BMF belt is a novelty amongst fighters. It's a peer thing and a casual thing. It's not a ranking thing, and it's mostly for the 155ers, right? So on that aspect, it's nice to know that it's the 155 division that actually can fight for the BMF belt, because everybody knows the 155 division is the premier division in the UFC. Can we agree? That's not even contestable. It's not heavyweight, it's not featherweight, it is not bantamweight, it is not flyweight, it's not welter, it's not middleweight. It is the light heavyweight division that can lay claim to fight for the BMF belt. So when Dustin Poirier comes out and makes that kind of a proposal, it makes sense, right? Because Dustin fights at 155, right? Okay, so now this is my problem with that. So I'm looking at Dustin Poirier, right? Dustin Poirier is what's Dustin's resume? Dustin has been in a lot of wars, right? Former interim champion at light heavyweight, former title contender, fought for the title twice, right? Fought for the BMF belt and lost. So he's lost the title shot twice, fought for the BMF belt and also lost. And Justin can't, at this point in his career, he's talking about retirement, so he can't really go out with a title run. It's over. It's a wrap. Dustin Poirier is only in the UFC to make big fights, novelty fights, legacy fights. It's not about skill set. It's no longer about rankings or none of that. Dustin Poirier is no longer on that level. But at the same time, Dustin Poirier is not a gatekeeper. So what do you do with a guy like that? He's not a gatekeeper. He's a big enough name, but at the same time, he can't fight for the title, can't do a title run. What do? You give him a big super fight, a novelty fight. Any fight Dustin Poirier partakes in today is a novelty fight, right? And if that kind of guy is in that kind of position, what's he gonna do, right? It's smart for him to call to fight for the BMF belt. And I think, like, if Dustin was unable to get this is what I think is going on in Dustin Poirier's mind. If he was never able to be a UFC champion on any level, either in 155 division or in the 145 divisions, which are divisions he has fought in the past, if he could not get a belt in this division and he's gotten chances and failed, the one belt he can really hold on to that can crown his career for what it's worth is the BMF belt. You see what I'm saying? Stick with me, guys. I'll get to my point. The BMF belt is probably the only belt Dustin Poirier can fight for at this stage in his career, unless he does something really crazy and wants to go to welterweight to fight for the welterweight belt or do a title run at welterweight. At lightweight and featherweight, it's a wrap, right? But I don't even think Dustin is willing to do that. He's set up for life. He's had wars. He's in a good place. He's a big superstar, right? He's had the 3 corner fights. He's good, right? But he doesn't have the BMF title. And I feel like if Dustin Poirier can get the BMF title, that will be a crowning achievement and a great highlight reel for his Hall of Fame induction in the future. I think when he leaves the UFC and he looks back on his career and that highlight reel is going on and they're talking about all the fights that he's had, everything he's done in the UFC, everything he's done for mixed martial arts, the philanthropy and everything else, being a father, the corner fights, whatever. I think that Dustin believes there will be a degree of satisfaction for him if he can see a highlight reel where the BMF belt is being wrapped around his waist, or him carrying the BMF belt, or him winning the BMF belt. That's what I think. Now, this way I think Dustin Poirier is sneaky, right? So Dustin Poirier has that at the back of his mind, and then they ask him, Dustin, who do you think should be in this tournament, right? Dustin Poirier, in his infinite wisdom, picks out Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, Max Holloway, and himself. By the way, all these guys they've all fought at featherweight or lightweight. And they are all killers. All of them. But here's the sneaky part. Dustin thought I wouldn't see it because nobody else has said this. I haven't seen anybody say this online, but Dustin thought I wouldn't know this. Dustin Poirier, you're picking out people you've beaten before. You're picking out people you've beaten before and you've won. All of them. Dustin Poirier has wins over Max Holloway. Dustin Poirier has wins over Justin Gaethje. Dustin Poirier has won Dan Hooker. So he's trying to put himself in a position where if he has one last fight, maybe 2 last fights for the BMF title, his chances of winning to him are higher because he's going to face 3 opponents that he's beaten in the past. You thought I wasn't going to you thought I wasn't going to see that. You thought I wouldn't get a glimpse of that, but man, these casual eyes see everything, bruh. These casual eyes know everything. for the most part, right? You thought I was going to let that one slide. No, Dustin. How about you pick people, right, that you haven't won? But then again, that's a hard thing to sell right now with where he's at in the division, because again, who has Dustin really fought that he hasn't won? Like who's a big enough name that Dustin Poirier has fought in the light heavyweight or featherweight division that is, big enough to go on that kind of run? Not really many people, right? Not really many people. But how about this, right? I can throw in Charles Oliveira's name in that mix. I mean, he's lost to Charles Oliveira in the past. There's another person I could throw into that mix that would make for a very fantastic tournament at this stage in his career, Alexander Volkanovski. Think about it, right? Volk wants to fight at 155. Volk has fought at 155, right? He's still on a title run at 145. And he's looking for a fight right now, but a fight that will not affect his chances at 145. Throw Volk in the mix, and guess what? Alexander Volkanovski and Dustin Poirier have actually never fought. Right? Throw Alexander Volkanovski in the mix. So, my proposal will be this: 4-man tournament to include someone that Dustin Poirier has beaten in, what's his name? Max Holloway, who is currently the BMF guy. The second person is someone who has beaten Dustin Poirier in Charles Oliveira. And the fourth person would be Alexander Volkanovski, who is also a former champion, and Dustin Poirier has never fought him before. That to me will make more sense. That to me will be more exciting. A 4-man tournament, right? Because we all know that Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Charles Oliveira, they're actually more popular than Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. Can we agree? As popular as Justin Gaethje is as a fighter, Justin is not more popular than Alexander Volkanovski. He's not more popular than Max Holloway, and he's definitely not more of a fan favorite than Charles Oliveira. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Listen, you can thank me, Dustin. You can thank me for this suggestion. But Uncle Dana, if you are listening, that is the best tournament. If Alexander Volkanovski is listening to this, guys, share this video if you want. Put it out there to Alexander Volkanovski, Dustin Poirier, and Max Holloway. If there's going to be a fun, casual tournament for the BMF, it should be Dustin Poirier, Alexander Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira, and Max Holloway, who's the current holder of the BMF belt. Right? And it's smart that Max isn't putting the BMF title on the line at 145 in his fight against Ilia Topuria, coming up at UFC 307. So that's my proposal. I think it's a fantastic proposal, and I think it will work. I really think that will work a lot better than Dustin proposing guys he's beaten before, and then he wants to do another tournament with guys he's fought before. Put in someone you've beaten before, put in someone who has beat you before, and put in someone you've never fought before. So we have a lot more to look forward to. Make sense? Yes, it does. Thank you. Let's transition right now to, just coming off this whole Max and Ilia thing. Let's transition to UFC 308 coming up, Topuria versus Holloway in Abu Dhabi. So Max and Max and Ilia Topuria met for the first time in an online interview anchored by Brendan Fitzgerald of the UFC. Now, a lot of people in that interview they've had a lot of things to say. A lot of casuals said that Max, it seemed to, a lot of casuals and actually experts too, because I think Daniel Cormier also said this, that Max seemed angry, right? Max seemed angry in that clip or that interview, and that Ilia Topuria might be getting under Max Holloway's skin. Now, I am not a fan of Ilia Topuria. I'm sorry, said this before and I'll say it again. I don't like Ilia. I think Ilia is very, very unoriginal. Ilia doesn't have his own personality and his own style, right? As a person, he's boring. He has to take ideas and take inspiration draw inspiration from other people. Look at Sean O'Malley. Who the hell is O'Malley? Nobody can accuse Sean O'Malley of being someone else. Sean is himself. Nobody can accuse Conor of being someone else. Conor is himself. Nobody can accuse, who else a loudmouth? Even Joaquin Buckley. Buckley is himself. These guys know they have the it factor. And I think Ilia Topuria tries too hard to have the it factor. In my personal opinion, that's what I think, right? So I've never really liked Ilia, right? But I can't disrespect his accolades and I can't disrespect everything he's done in the octagon. I just don't think he's won me over yet. And he shouldn't feel bad about winning me over, because guess what? I actually didn't like Alexander Volkanovski in his first 3 fights as champion. It was the 3rd fight with Max Holloway that completely sold me and won me over. Then I started noticing Volkanovski's personality outside of the ring, and I gotta say, cheers to old man Volks. I absolutely love that guy, right? I love his fight IQ, I love his story, and I love everything about him. It's possible for Ilia Topuria to win me over, right? So, looking at that interview with Brendan Fitzgerald, what I noticed to myself was just Ilia Topuria is trying to sell the fight, right? He's acting all cool and suave, like he's not impressed by Max Holloway. Bruh, shut up, Ilia. Shut up, Ilia Topuria. We saw you. We saw your reaction when Max Holloway knocked Gaethje out at UFC 300 with 1 second to go in the 5th round. Bruh, we saw your reaction, bruh. You can't even fake it. Like you can't pretend. You can't pretend like you weren't blown away. What? You can't pretend that way. Like, you just can't. We know you were impressed. We know that you loved it. We know that it was the most spectacular thing you've ever seen in MMA. I don't care what you want to say, Ilia Topuria. That knockout of Justin Gaethje was the ultimate. So I think a better way to go into this fight would be not to try to get under Max Holloway's skin, which I don't even think he succeeded at doing, right? Not to be this annoying little prick, right? But go in there, be professional. You're the champion of the world at 145, right? You don't need to overblow the confidence. But I guess maybe you're trying to sell PPV so that you can get, your PPV points, of which I can never knock that hustle. But I also think that there's more ways to do it. There's more ways to market yourself. There's more ways to put eyes on the fight. The way you're doing it, Ilia Topuria, it feels so fake and so unnatural, so unoriginal, and so, quite frankly, so boring. Like, it's boring. The way you present yourself in interviews, your live, so boring. Right? That's not what we're about. We're casuals. We want to see some excitement. You know what I'm saying? We want to see excitement, my brother. And I don't think he got under Max Holloway's skin. Max is always cool. If you notice in interviews, Max is always cool. I think the most animated I've ever seen Max for a press conference, I think might have been the Khabib fight. I think, I might be wrong. But Max is easygoing, he's cool until those doors shut in the octagon, and then he's a complete beast from, you know, the Blessed Express in Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't see much in that interview to suggest to me like Max is angry. If anything, I think Max was bored. I think Ilya is saying the same thing. I think that Max is thinking to himself, like, how long do I have to be here for this interview? I have a lot of things, a lot more other things to do. And I'm happy Max, that interview was about 15 minutes. I think that was what it was. But it was their first meeting. It was very entertaining, right? But this was just my thoughts on Ilya Toporia's attitude in the interview. Like, it made no sense, right? Made no sense. Little moments where he's trying to be bigger than what he really is. Like, bro, Ilya Topuria gives me a headache. Like, you give me a headache. I can't really think about any ways you're exciting. I can't think about, you know, good stuff you do. I mean, okay, I can think about one way that Ilya Topuria is exciting, and that's in the ring. In the octagon. Ilya Topuria, I give you your credit. You are an exciting fighter in the octagon. Hands down. Hands of steel, looking crisp and sharp in your boxing clip the other day. Nice technique. I have to give it to you, because I always respect guys. You know, I say I respect fighters a lot. But you're going up against Max Holloway. You can't tell me Max has no technique. You're trying to challenge Max to point at the ground in the first 10 seconds. Why should Max do that, right? When you're still fresh and all that. And Max doesn't have to do that. Max does it even when he's winning. Do you understand? That's his signature move. It's not for you to dictate to Max Holloway what his signature move is and how he should do it. We have become accustomed to Max Holloway banging it out the last 10 seconds of every fight. If anything, I want to see Max make that the last 15 seconds. You know what I'm saying? There'll be more lights put out then. So, Ilya, get ready. If you make it to the last round with Max, you're going to get your throwdown at the end. Guaranteed you will get your throwdown at the last 10 seconds. Let's see what you can do with it. And if you put Max out before then, listen, props to you. You're a champ. If I see that, I would not be surprised. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. All right, transition now. Let's go over to Jesus. I struggled with this story, right? This story. Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill was spotted at UFC 307 in the crowd when Alex Pereira completely chopped down, beat the living crap out of Khalil Roundtree, who showed heart. Guys, my respect to Khalil Roundtree. My respect to Khalil Roundtree. And also my respect to Alex Porter, but my respect to Khalil Roundtree. I like military parade. Like, god damn it. Khalil showed heart in that fight. Right? I'm not going to go into details of the analysis. I mean, everybody's done that. It's been a little bit of a while. I didn't hop on the bandwagon because I had other things going on in my personal life. But man, I gotta say, props up to Khalil Roundtree. He got my respect. His stock went up after that fight. He's done some surgery. Chances are he may meet Jamahal Hill next. We don't know. But I hope that when he does meet Jamahal Hill, he puts Jamahal Hill's lights out, because Jesus Christ, as if Jamahal Hill couldn't be any more disliked. He goes out and does something silly like that, right? Or maybe he just wants people to talk about him, which there are better ways to do it, right? You can't talk shit about somebody who completely put your lights out. But did you see Jamal's eyes when he got knocked out? Did you see the stars and the stripes? My man, you saw stars and stripes. When Alex went in with that left hook and completely knocked you out and sealed the deals with those hammer fists, you can't forget that. You can't. So acting like, you're young, You're bored at Alex Pereira's fights. Really? Really? Jamal? Really? You know you're not bored. You know, if anything, the NyQuil, the melatonin in Alex Pereira's left hand is still ODing in your system, right? That melatonin is deep in your system. Let that thing simmer down. Let it, wash out. Drink your vitamins, drink your proteins, drink some water, drink some beer. Drink some beer, let it roll out of your system so that you can at least start to think straight, right? Focus on what you need to do. You're starting a fight that is not even guaranteed. There's no guarantee you're going to meet Portan anytime soon. And if you're going to work your way back in, I would like to see it. I would like to see that journey. I'd like to see how you've improved between the last fight, the surgery, and your next fight. If that's with Khalil, that's good for you. Fantastic performance against Khalil, who's very deadly. Listen, good for you. Maybe then you might be able to face Portan, because luckily enough, Alex has decided not to change weight classes. He likes where he's at. He's not going up to fight Aspinall, Jones, or Stipe. And he's definitely not going down to challenge Duplessis or fuck up Sean Strickland's chances at getting the middleweight weight belt. So he's at light heavyweight. So for the foreseeable future, chances are you might, if you keep up a good run, you might meet him in 2025. What do you think, Jamahal Hill? Do you think you've got what it takes in 2025? Because I can tell you, listen, Alex keeps going the way he's going. I put in all my money on Alex, and I'm not trying to, downplay you, but I mean, if people like Paul Craig are not to say, big Paul Craig, I'm not disrespecting anybody, I'm not disrespecting Paul Craig, but in terms of accomplishments, we all know Paul Craig ain't accomplished like Alex Pereira is in the UFC. And even to make matters worse, Jamahal Hill, if people like Paul Craig and Glover Teixeira, who's old man Glover, gave you that kind of a fight, what makes you think you really can stand against Alex Pereira, who is better than Paul Craig as a fighter and younger than Glover Teixeira, and actually has achieved more than Glover Teixeira, who's his coach and mentor? What makes you think you're going to be able to take that? And I understand you might have some self-confidence. That's great. I love it for you. But I just don't see it happening. You know what I'm saying? TDC has spoken. Let's see how it goes. Okay? Now, transition. The MMA guru. Guys, for those of you in this space who are casuals, right? You may or may not know about the MMA guru. Quite frankly, I knew about the MMA guru. I found out about him earlier this year. MMA guru is just, it's a guy like me who's been putting in the work, building his YouTube channel and talking about mixed martial arts. I subscribe to MMA guru. I follow him. He's good stuff, right? I like underdogs. I like the underdog story. I like guys in this space because we all share thoughts, right? I can't say he's an inspiration for me because I do my own thing, right? I'm just a casual who's been watching this sport for a pretty long darn time. But I do appreciate people like, MMA guru. I don't know if he has fighting skills enough for me to call him an expert. But he does have a pretty decent knowledge of the sport. Anyway, that's my introduction with MMA Guru. And then, do you guys know Nina Drama? And like MMA Guru, apparently Nina Drama is also in this space. She's in our space where we report about MMA, mixed martial arts and combat news. And apparently she has some popularity. I have seen her. I found out about her this year, but I do not follow her. I don't, she's just not my style. I probably not her style too, but it's a big enough space for everybody. But I don't follow her every now and then. I do see clips of her and some interviews she has with MMA fighters, and she has very strong connections in the UFC. So much so that a lot of casuals are calling her a UFC shill. Right? She's a UFC plant in the media. That's what they say, allegedly. I do not know. These statements are alleged. I have no proof. I have nothing to back it up. I just read comments in different comment sections and I see what people are saying, right? So anyway, let's get to the story. So the MMA guru at the UFC 307 press conference, right? The MMA guru made some snide remarks about a lady who was a reporter at the UFC 307 pre-fight press conference. He sort of alluded to the lady, being chunky, but he made it seem like he was going after the cameraman. Listen, there's a lot of ways to interpret that tweet that he put out. Yeah, you could say on the surface that it's about the cameraman, but the truth of the matter is, if you read between the lines, you could tell he was taking an innocent jab at the lady in just our outer appearance. She seemed a little bit chunky, right? And it's all in good spirit and all in good sport, because at the end of the day, the MMA guru himself, he's a huge chunky guy. I see him stand beside Dricus du Plessis because for the most part, you see him on his channel when he's seated. And if he's seated, you can't really tell how tall he is, right? It's like me, I'm a pretty tall guy, but I sit down for the most part. So you probably think I'm like 5'2". So MMA guru himself is a bit of a chunky guy, right? So it's like if he decides to fat shame or whatever you want to call it, I mean, he's doing what he's doing, right? I personally didn't think it was that big of a deal. I thought it was unnecessary for him to go after that lady because she hadn't really done anything to him. But then my sweet Nina Drama jumps on this and just completely makes this post about the MMA guru, and she just goes in on him, calling him vile and she, paraphrasing here, she referred to him as, a big pile of shite. And then the MMA guru claps back with an epic 40-minute video completely breaking down Nina Drama with receipts. Jesus, Lord Christ. Listen, my man came there with receipts. He was not playing games. He wasn't, right? He just completely took her out, posted a lot of things, right? Past interviews she's done with Sean Strickland and people like John Jones, who have a history of objectifying and abusing, women. They have that history. Sean Strickland and John Jones. And Nina Drama is friends with them, So essentially, MMA Guru was asking, what moral authority do you have to call me whatever when you yourself are frolicking with people who do exactly the same thing? And it's a valid argument. It's a valid argument. Is Nina Drama really in a position to question MMA's guru's choices of words that he uses to describe people? No, not really. Not really. But I have to say this. I just don't think that beef was necessary. I think it was extremely shallow for both of them. In fact, after MMA Guru's clapback video, Nina Drama came out with another short video, trying to again clap back at him. I'm like, oh man, listen, this is getting boring, right? And I'm just gonna cut through the chase. Listen, MMA Guru, why bother? Why bother going after Nina Drama? Like, our space is really small. Our sport is a young sport, and it's growing, right? It's like 30 plus years old. Let's just spread some unity, right? And where there can be unity, I think you should pick your battles. I think Nina Drama is worth your time, right? She's doing what she's doing. She's talking what she's talking. Develop that thick skin, bruh. Because I know it's like me. I know people are gonna say a lot of shit about me, but you know what? Fuck that. I got thick skin, right? This is some original, it's original motherland goodness right here. Thick as fuck. I don't care what people say, right? I just don't. So if you can help it, my advice to you would be, let Lena, let her go. Don't even talk about it. Don't give her more popularity than she deserves. I mean, she's already popular and all, but don't engage yourself in those kind of rhetorics with Nina Drama. I mean, focus on your lane. Do what you keep doing. Not everybody who takes a swipe at you deserves your time and attention. That's a feminine trait, bro. That's a feminine trait. I'm just saying. TC, that's all he's gonna say about that, right? Let's transition. So, I'm actually gonna go back real quick. Just so you know, MMA Guru is so good at his stuff, right? He actually calls out Dana White a lot. I think in more recent news, MMA Guru called out Dana White for talking shit about Demetrius Johnson in the past, but now that Demetrius has retired from MMA and is inducted in the ONE FC Hall of Fame, Dana is sort of backtracking here a little bit, and MMA Guru called him out. I just wanted to point that out to you, all right? Because I was very aware, I saw that as well. All right, let's transition to the UFC having an event in Africa. My thoughts on that are simple. You could have done it when you had the Three Kings. You could have done a UFC event when you had the Three Kings. The era of the Three Kings. This was like a 4 year window where 3 African fighters were very dominant in the UFC, right? And you even had some on the roster too, right? The 3 dominant fighters were Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, who are both from Nigeria, and Francis Ngannou, who is from Cameroon. Guess what? Nigeria and Cameroon, going into a little geography here, Nigeria and Cameroon are literally neighboring countries, like the US and Mexico, right? Nigeria and Cameroon share the same border. Nigeria alone has over 200 million people, Sir Dana, and they got money. They have money, bruh, to burn. They don't do credit. They buy everything. It's all owned, like cash down, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is, if the UFC wanted to do an event in Africa, my preference and my suggestion to the UFC is that you can't do those kinds of things in Africa without starting first in Nigeria. I might be biased, but it's the truth, right? Population-wise, Lagos State has over 20 million people in one state. Well, that is country. Some countries, and that's 2 countries sometimes, the population of 2 countries in one state, right? Or you could have taken it to Abuja. That's another suggestion. Abuja in Nigeria. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, downplay my South African brothers, right? South Africa is a beautiful country. South Africa right now has the only, I believe, the only African champion. But you see how that was a missed opportunity. And we really thought Some of us thought that the UFC was actually going to go to Africa when Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, and Francis Ngannou were champions. You would have made so much money. The UFC would have made so much money because events like that have never happened on that scale on the continent, and particularly in Lagos, Nigeria. And the people, Nigerians, love to have a good time. That event would have been so lit, I would have been turned into a party. Now, if you want to talk about structures and infrastructure that could have hosted that event, while I do admit that they have more stadiums rather than arenas, but Dana White, if you can go back in time or anybody on your crew who sees it, go back and check on a structure called the This Day Dome. This Day Dome. That is a makeshift structure that is movable, a makeshift arena that was set up in Nigeria many years ago, probably around 2007, 2008. It was makeshift, but it was a good enough structure that it could host thousands of people indoors. Right? Beyonce has done concert at the This Day Dome. P. Diddy, I'm sorry, hey, I know that's a big name to call right now. But, they've all done that. Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z. These guys have all done concerts indoors at that event that can host the amount of people that can bring some decent money at the gate. And it's indoors. It's detachable. You can set it up anywhere. I'm just making these suggestions that you guys can look into. It's a few things you can, talk about. But it's unfortunate, like that opportunity was missed and it's going to South Africa now, which for me is still a win because I'm happy for a UFC event, a fight night, pay-per-view, whatever it is, to be held on the motherland. It will be quite an event. Unfortunately, I might not be able to see it live, but I guarantee you, it will be a home run. Ain't no party like an African party. I'm just saying. So Uncle Dana, if you guys want, you can reach out to me. I can, make a few calls over there and get things rolling. Trust me. Trust me, guys. I know the UFC, you guys are top notch at what you do, but if you want someone on ground who can help out with that, listen, your boy is here. Hit me up. Let's talk now, finally, the transition to the last story for today. Guys, oh my God, it's been a couple of minutes, almost an hour, but you've missed me. I haven't done this in a while. So listen, let's focus on this talk about Jorge Masvidal wanting to come back to mixed martial arts, the UFC, and Tyron Woodley wanting to make a comeback as well. And again, it goes back to, for me saying, I'm just thinking to myself, are these guys broke? Are they having an identity crisis? Because Jorge Masvidal, at least on paper, looks to me like he's doing very okay and he has a very fantastic retirement going on. Tyron Woodley, not so much. Not so much. And I wonder if any of these guys can move the needle at this point in their career. Who's Tyron going to fight? And for what? Is this for the money? Is he coming back? Is he doing a Nick Diaz thing? What's going on? What's it going to be? Who you want to fight? Who does he want to fight? I have no idea who Tyron can fight right now on the roster. I have no idea. Masvidal, on the other hand, bruh, we all know it's the three-piece and the soda fight. The story is laid out. Leon Edwards, you better be watching this attentively. You better be focusing on this story attentively. Fuck the belt. The fight for Leon Edwards, if Jorge Masvidal comes back to the UFC, it should be Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal for several reasons. They have a very big history and a story to build up. Secondly, Masvidal pulls a lot of eyes. He pulls needles to the sport, Leon. It's more money for you. Third, if Masvidal wants to go on a title run, right? The best person for him right now would be to beat Leon Edwards. If you beat Leon, I can see Bilal doing this big money fight with Masvidal or Usman. Because those guys pull numbers. I see it. And that's, if Usman decides to beat Leon decisively, bruh, that's a no-brainer. That is next, if Masvidal decides to beat Leon Edwards, if they do fight, it's a no-brainer to give him a title shot. I'm sorry, listen. I mean, don't blame me, guys, for adapting to the new system the UFC does. Like the rankings, though, it doesn't matter anymore. So I'm adapting to what I see. I'm adapting to the landscape presented to me, right? So that would be something that would be worth looking into. I really don't mind either of these guys coming back. It's just my own issue with Tyron Woodley is I don't know who Woodley is gonna fight. Like, and for what? What's the motivation? I don't know. Or for Jorge Masvidal, Daniel Cormier take several seats back. I want to see Leon Edwards versus Jorge Masvidal. I think that fight not happening before Masvidal retired is a complete travesty. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We need that fight to happen. And I don't even care if it's a boring fight. We need that fight to happen. When beef is so rich and pure, you want it to get settled, right? It's been seasoned. We just need to put that beef on the grill right now. UFC, pay attention, please. I need it for my soul. I need that fight for my soul. Do you understand? Like, I need that fight. I need it a lot. I need that fight. All right, guys, listen. If you've been here this long, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed doing this for however long it's been. If you've been here this long, I thank you. I appreciate you, and I love you guys. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the private messages you've been sending. When I sent out that, I sent out the video a couple of days ago saying I was having a personal tragedy. Some of you sent me personal messages on Instagram, and also here, I thank you. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. And if there's anything you want to engage in the comment section, please be my guest. You guys know I love the disagreements. And it actually pisses me off when I can't argue with you guys, because sometimes you guys say some shit that is so right. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, Mr. TDC is gracefully bowing out. Peace. I'll see you on the next one.